Welcome back to Ordinary Heroes, the podcast for those pursuing grit, faith, and growth, one intentional step at a time. Today's guest is someone I met while serving as a background extra on The Chosen Season 6, and he's become a real inspiration, Scott Adams. Scott is a successful entrepreneur, a devoted father of two, and a man whose faith has carried him through both great success and deep loss. After building and selling his business, Scott walked through one of life's hardest seasons, losing his wife to cancer. What stands out most about him, the light he carries, his peace, his faith, and his clarity about what truly matters. I want to gently prepare you. This is a conversation about loss, faith, and what happens when the person who fixes everything learns to trust God instead. Scott, thank you for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Scott, before we get into your story, can you please tell us a little bit about your background, what life looked like before this new chapter, and what has shaped your outlook on successful faith over the years?
I grew up in Memphis, Tennessee, and during college, I went down to Disney. They used to have this college program, the summer thing, because I grew up a big Disney nerd. And so I went down there during college, and it changed my life, met people from all over the world that, worked at Epcot Center and made friends, and it changed my perspective on a lot of things. Growing up here in the South, it broadened my horizon. So went back after college, and on that, I went on a 1-year internship. They used to call it the fellowship program. Same scenario, living with internationals, things like that. And that's where I met Jennifer. She was one of the 7 Americans in our program, and we were working together, and she was not a believer at the time. I was doing what they always tell you not to do, which was missionary dating. And so I was giving her C.S. Lewis books, taking her to church, all these different things like that. All the while telling her, I can't marry you. We can date, but I can't marry you. Well, we go along, we're dating. And then there was a mentor I had at Disney. He's a gentleman named Alan Rajanis. He's always been the guy that always, like, when I grow up, I want to be like Alan. Godly man, great guy. He called me one day, and I hadn't seen him in months. And he was like, God's put something on my heart about you. He's like, are you in a relationship you shouldn't be in? And I was like, oh, wow.
Wow.
I said, well, I am giving her C.S. Lewis books, and I'm taking her to church. He's like, Scott, come on. He told me, you're deceiving her. He goes, you're telling her one thing. You're telling her it's great your life will be better if you follow Jesus and, do what he says for you to do. He goes, but you're not doing that. And he says, so you're telling her one thing and doing another. And he goes, you need to stop the whole romantic thing. He said, you can be friends with her, but you shouldn't be the one to lead her to Christ. So went back to sat down and had the conversation with Jennifer. There were a lot of tears, and it was not fun, but we broke up, I guess you would say. And about 6 weeks later, where we lived for Disney, they had housing for us, and they would shuttle us back and forth to work. And she's on the bus going to work, and she's balancing her checkbook. This tells you how old this was. And a girl comes down the aisle. She scoots over. Her checkbook falls under the seat. And there was these, molded seats that you couldn't see under them, but she fishes around, or sticks her arm down the cavity. And when she pulls it out, she pulls out her checkbook, and she pulls out a Bible tract from a church in Grenada, Mississippi. So she read the tract. She got off the bus. She went into costuming, picked up the payphone, called the 800 number on the thing. The pastor answered the phone, little small church in Grenada.
Yeah.
And he walked her through, and she got saved.
Wow.
So then she calls me on the phone, and she's bawling, crying. And so I flip out. I'm like, where are you? What's the matter? She goes, I just got saved. So that's where our story gets started.
Wow.
And then I started my own business then. I was a stockbroker for a time, and then we found out we were pregnant with Molly. There were complications when she was born, and Jennifer was in ICU for about 6 weeks, and she died and was resuscitated twice. And so almost lost her then. I remember going out behind the ER on a hill out there, and Noah was 3 and Molly was newborn. And I would just went out there, and I cried out to God. I was like, I can't do this. I was like, I can't do this without her. I was like, you got to do something. And through a lot of prayer from a lot of folks, she survived and thrived and got out of the hospital and was good for many years. I worked for Pepsi for a time. I was not not happy with the corporate thing. So I opened a cleaning service. And at the biggest we ever got, I had 167 employees, which means I had 300 headaches every day.
I bet.
Yeah. One of the guys that was working with us found this new business. It was an ice vending machine. I said, well, how many people does it take to run this? He said, none. I said, well, we're getting in this business now. And so we got out of the cleaning business. In 22, Jenny got sick. And then we found out she had stage 4 mesothelioma lung cancer. And so we started, and she was in really, really bad shape. They gave us 3 to 6 months with treatment. They were like, they want to start chemo right away and all this. And she didn't want to do it. The chemo or radiation. Thankfully, they had done some testing and she qualified for some immunotherapy. So we started that, and that worked really well for about 18 months, which I didn't know at the time. At the time when she started getting better, I was like, oh, she's gonna be fine. But that's pretty much, I didn't find out until later that that's about what immunotherapy, that's about the range. It's about 18 months. It works really well and then it stops working. So when it stopped working, we were looking at other avenues, what to do. And so we were looking at some treatments in Mexico, and overseas and things like that. She also said, if none of this works, I just want more time with you. That you need to sell the business. So I sold everything in February of 24. And then we went to Mexico like 5 times, and we went to California for a trial procedure, or a very, very new procedure. It wasn't really a trial. And then after that procedure, we came back and I took her straight to the hospital, and we were in the hospital all the month of February. And then on March 3rd, we got her home. I guess it was Monday, 1 a.m. She left.
Wow.
But I'd built her this because we were looking for all these different therapies and things like that. I'd read somewhere that beekeepers live longer than any other profession because the vibration of the bee's wings does something to your cells and helps you heal. And my dad he's had bees as a hobby. And then when I was a kid, we had that as our business, selling honey and stuff. And he's 91, or he'll be 91 in December. And he's still hard charging, he can still work me in the ground. And I said, maybe there's something to this whole bee healing thing. So, I had a guy help me design and build it's like a sauna, little building. When you walk in, there's 2 beds on either side. But under the beds, from loading from the outside, are 3 big beehives on either side. So you got about roughly, I think it works out to be like 500,000 bees are laying on top of. And so I built this thing, had bees loaded in it. And that was in probably October. And then we were going in there about an hour a day. And then in December, she was like, I can breathe so much better in here. I feel better. And so she was like, can we just stay the night, just spend the night in here? I was like, sure. So we spent the night in there, and then we moved in, and essentially, and then from December until we went to California for that treatment, we just moved into the little bee house and we lived in there. So when we were in the hospital and they were like, hey, there's nothing more we can do. She didn't want to pass away in the hospital. So I was like, I got to get her back to the bee house. So we got back to the bee house, and I told her, if you see Jesus show up, you let me know. And so we were talking, and first night, the kids stayed out there with me, and we stayed up all night with her. And then the next day, I think she was waiting for her baby sister to get there, and her baby sister got there the next night. She got to, see her. And that night I told the kids, y'all just sleep inside. I said, Mom's so strong. This may be days that she's like this. But I'd lay down, listen to her labored breathing and stuff like that. And cause she got to where she couldn't speak, at that point. But all of a sudden I heard her just clear as day. She just said, now. It was loud. She was like, now. Now, I don't know if that means now was when she saw Jesus. She was letting me know, hey, I just saw him. He's here. Or Jesus was like, you let me know when you're ready to go. And she said, now. And then she stopped breathing. So,
wow.
So that brings us up. And then after that, and when she was in the hospital, she told me, don't waste this. She was like, don't waste this time. Don't waste my story. Don't waste any of this. You need to tell people about Jesus. Wow. So I guess it was in March or in April. This is all kind of a blur.
Mm-hmm.
When the email came out for the chosen meeting extras. I don't remember if that was March or April, but at the time I had, I pretty much shut down as far as caring about any emails. So I had like 2,000 something unread emails on my computer. And so one day, I don't know what caused me to do I think it's divine.
Yeah.
I walked into my office, opened my laptop up, and I was like, oh my gosh, I got 2,800 emails I haven't read. So I got to start burning through these things. And so I opened it up, started going through them, and like 2 or 3 down, it was the chosen needing extras.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, well, and Jenny loved watching The Chosen. We watched it. She watched it over and over again. It gave her a lot of comfort. And so I called Molly, my daughter, and I was like, hey, would you be okay watching the dogs if I did this? Are you cool with that? Kind of deal. And she was like, yeah, I think it's great. So I pulled it up, started to sign up. I was going to sign up for the week, and then those were sold out. So I was like, okay, I'll grab this one, and then I'll do Texas. And I booked them both, and I was like, okay, all good. And it wasn't until I got down there with, I got to Utah and then down with you guys that they told us it sold out in like 15 minutes or, something like that. All the spots were booked.
Yeah.
So the fact that I pulled the laptop up at the right time, and that's where I think it was, Jenny saying not to waste this, because since then, I posted about it and things like that. And we've got friends from her days at Epcot, at Disney, all over the world, Japan, Europe, all over. And so a lot of those folks have started watching The Chosen. And they had no, didn't know anything about it, anything like that. That's why I think that's kind of divine thing to do.
Absolutely.
So that's what I'm trying to do now.
Well, when I met you, and I was very impressed. So can you tell us about how did you experience God's peace in the midst of grief?
Well, before us going to California, I wasn't suicidal to the point that I was going to kill myself, but I wanted to die every day because it was just so hard seeing her hurting so bad and not being able to fix it. Because if you're an entrepreneur type person, you're just like, hey, everybody just get out of my way and I'll fix this. I'll just work harder. I'll work through, kind of a deal. And early on, or about halfway through the 3-year period, felt God was telling me 2 words that I felt like God spoke to me was rest and trust. So I was like, okay. My response to God was, I can rest when you start healing her. I trust that you can do it. That was my way of interpreting what he told me to do. Rest and trust. Like I'll rest like nobody's ever rested before as soon as you heal her. And I trust that you can do it. Well, we go out to California, and before we go out there, a friend of mine's doing a study on Ecclesiastes. Okay. And she was just like, hey, I want to do this Bible study with you guys. This is a good friend of mine, Renee, and we've always been very competitive with one another. She's like a big sister I never had. And she says, I'm the little brother she never wanted. So we have that kind of relationship. Well, I was like, well, I'm going to read a commentary, or I want to read a book about Ecclesiastes. So if we do this study with them, I can drop some nuggets in there. They'll make me sound like I'm just super wise. So I would start reading this book by Tommy Nelson. It's A Life Well Lived. Highly recommend the book. But if you've read Ecclesiastes, and the first part of it, it talks about it's just all vanity. It's all worthless. Not the greatest book to read when you just want to die, because you're like, you're right. There's no point to any of this, deal. There's no point to it. So it's not the best, when you're in that season of life, it's not the most encouraging, but if you keep reading and you keep going, it talks about the sovereignty of God. And in doing that, we were out in California. And before that, when she was staying in the B house, every night I would walk outside. It's only like an 8x10 building, but I would walk around it 7 times every night and pray for it, kind of like they did at Jericho. I was like, I'm going to walk around this thing. I'm going to pray to God that you're going to heal her. So doing that every night that she was in there. And then when we got to California, when she was going to go back for the procedure, she was like, hey, how about you walk around the hospital? And I was like, okay, I'll do that. The hospital really wasn't laid out with like a walking path around it. So I'm going around restricted areas and all that stuff. But I was like, I'm doing this. I'm going to sit my watch and I'm going to lap it, because otherwise I'll lose count of how many times I went around this thing.
Uh-huh.
And I'm going around, and this is when I'm reading about the sovereignty of God. And I'm walking around praying to God. And when I make the first lap, and then I make the second lap, I look, and it takes me exactly 7 minutes to walk around the hospital. And I just started laughing, and I was like, and whether or not this is, some people would say you're just reading too much into this, but it gave me a piece of like, you knew when whoever designed this place and was laying out the sidewalks, that there was going to come a time where I was going to need a sign from you that you were in control.
Mm.
And I said, and I walked around this thing. It took me 7 minutes to walk around. I said, that's all I needed. And I was like, you got this. It's not up to me. And it was like this giant weight just dropped off my shoulders, that it
Wow.
wasn't up to me to save her. It wasn't up to me to find the next treatment. It wasn't up to me to get her well, that regardless of what happened, he, he's in control. And I trust that he loves us more than I love her. So that helped a ton. And it took all the responsibility off me. So that when she did leave, um, I wasn't suicidal anymore or anything. I was like, I don't understand the plan, but he's in control and he can make something good come out of this. So that understanding that he's sovereign in this, that this is not, there's no chaos. I mean, it's like when we came back and we were in the hospital trying to make decisions for her when we got back, we were worried about certain things. I was like, hon, it's okay. I was like, he's not surprised by any of this. This is not, I wasn't expecting this. Then after she left, a friend suggested this book, and got it right here. When Your Soulmate Dies. Highly recommend this. There's a lot of books on grief, but this book, When Your Soulmate Dies, was great because it talks about when you have epic love, you've got to have epic level mourning, because if you stay in grief, you're gonna leads to depression. So you got to mourn through it so that you can move forward. So
Okay.
highly recommend that book if anybody's lost anyone. And it can be, doesn't have to, it could be a child, it could be a friend. It doesn't have to necessarily be your, and the gentleman that wrote this, Alan Wolfelt, he's written lots of books on grief and things like that. So he's got different ones depending on your situation, but highly recommend it. It's super helpful. And then another one I got that another friend suggested to me and is Heaven by Randy Alcorn. Now this book's 500 pages long, so it's not like a little quick read of, oh, heaven's going to be this. It's exhaustive in his study of it. And I haven't even finished it because I'll have these down days where I'm just, sad, and I'll pick it up and I'll read, and I might only get half a page, and I get so encouraged and hopeful, and not hope like wishful thinking, but hopeful like I've got an assurance that this is going to be amazing.
Hmm.
And I know, I know where Jenny is, and I know I'll get to see her again. Excuse me. And so yeah, like I'm only on page 400 now, and I almost don't want to finish it because it's so good. But he just came out with this 50 Days in Heaven. For me, anyway, those help me understand that, like it says in the Bible, we're only here for a breath. And so if you hold your breath, some people can hold it a minute, some people can hold it 30 seconds. It's not very long.
Something that I think our listeners would benefit from is, you and Jenny went through a certainly tough time together, and there are lessons about love, commitment, faith. Is there something that you wish to provide for couples going through something tough right now?
Lean into each other. A lot of times, if I've got friends, they've lost children. My parents did when both my older brothers have passed away. I know too many people that have lost a child, and a lot of marriages don't survive that. But I tell people, I've got another friend that's contemplating divorce, and I'm like, remember what think back to why you got married. Y'all were in love with each other at some point to where you said, I don't want to marry anybody else but you.
Mhm.
Well, go back and figure out what that was, and lean into that.
So Scott, you're in a different season now. Your priorities and pace have shifted. How do you define success today as a man of faith, as a father, someone entering a new season of life?
I've had a lot of wise counsel from people of saying, hey, for this first year, don't make any major decisions. Don't do anything crazy. So I'm trying to, as best I can, stick to that. And then as Jenny, my marching orders for her was don't waste this. She was like, do all the things that we wanted to do, which is tough because even the, everything now has like a shadow over it, I guess you would say. It's not the same and it won't be, but I think it was Tim Keller said it one time. He, when he had cancer and passed away from cancer, but I think it was during the season when there wasn't anything else they could do. And so they knew it was terminal. He said, I know intellectually, historically, you can look at all the sources outside the Bible, everything. He's like, Jesus existed. He changed history. And we know that from all accounts in the Bible and outside the Bible, he came out of that tomb. If he did, he's going to fix all this. And it's all going to be okay. So as bad as it gets, and for people that are struggling and things like that, as bad as it gets, and I have to tell myself this multiple times a day, and I wrestle with God about it too a lot of times, try to argue with God and, I don't like this, all these things. The devil wants us to turn our back on God and walk away.
Yeah.
Because God can take our criticisms. He can take all our complaints. He can take it all. He's our loving Father. Sometimes I'll be standing here in the kitchen and I'm like, it's just too much. But I just go back to Tim Keller and I'm like, but you're going to fix this. Yeah, I know you're going to fix this. And that's how I get through it. So anybody that's going through any, whatever hardships, understand that he's going to fix this. It's not in our timing. It's in his. So that would be my encouragement. Just understand that he's sovereign and it's going to be okay. Regardless of what happens, God's with you. He's never going to leave you or forsake you. Jesus is right there with you. So don't look at a bad outcome as being, oh, God didn't bless this. And a good outcome is God did bless this kind of a deal. Because we get a lot of that in our Christian culture nowadays. And that's just that's karma dressed up as Christianity. And that's not the way it works. So don't look at your outcome as saying, oh, God's blessing this because it's a good thing. And and he's pulled his blessing off of me. And that's a bad thing. Because that's not the way it's not the way it works. I don't believe anyway. I think he's with us in the good and the bad. And we live in a fallen world. So there's going to be, I'm living through it right now. There's a lot of bad and it's not his plan. It was never his plan for us to deal with this, but he's going to fix it.
Yeah, he's going to fix it. I know I identify a lot with what you were saying, where entrepreneurs or people like me who just want to fix things and do something about it. But, there's surrender and seeing God and letting God fix it in his way, in his time, which doesn't always match ours. So it's been great to remember about trusting, surrender, letting God fix.
Mm-hmm. God's still with us. It's going to work out. So, because it's so easy to get so caught up in all this and you lose sight of what really matters, which are relationships and spending time with those you love. It's funny to find this kernel of wisdom from a Marvel movie, but it's funny that one of them, Iron Man says something to his dad, no amount of money ever bought a second of time. And I was like, that's the greatest line ever. Cause that's what we're as entrepreneurs, we are striving to fill the pond. We want to get us, we're trying to, we're looking for security. We're trying to, build up wealth for security.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter how much money you got. If I'd give it all away if I get another second with Jenny. But you can't. So when you got your babies at home, love on them, spend as much time as you can with them. If you can drag them to work with you, drag them to work with you. If you're an entrepreneur, I used to take Molly and Noah with me. I'd be like, load up, let's go. We'll teach you how to do this, have them picking up garbage and doing it like that. And I think they had a ball because they were the dad doing stuff. So that's the other thing for entrepreneurs out there, include the family as much as you can in everything. And they may complain about it and want to go do something or play their Xbox, but drag them along.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have good memories of my dad doing that with me.
Exactly. And I look back on it. There was times I complained about it. I didn't want to go do it, but
Mhm.
now look back, I don't have fond memories of sitting in front of the Atari 2600. I have fond memories of going with my dad.
Yeah. Man, thank you, Scott. Thank
Mhm.
you. This brings us to the end of episode 15. I haven't lost a spouse to cancer, but I have lost my dad. And what I deeply relate to in Scott's story is that moment when you realize God is sovereign, even when his timing and his reasons don't make sense. Surrender isn't passive, it's often the bravest thing we can do. And yet, like Scott, we forget. We want to fix everything, we want to control the outcome. Let Scott's invitation meet you there. Rest in God, trust that He is in control, and focus on what truly matters. If you're walking through loss, especially during this holiday season, I want to point you to our loving Father. My prayer is that you will feel His nearness, even in the quiet, as you navigate this season. As we close out the year, our next episode will explore a practice that has profoundly reshaped my spiritual life and the lives of many others. A way of reaching out to God when He feels silent. Until then, you're not alone.